Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. I know I look super crazy right now because I have these long lashes, my eye makeup's done, and the rest of my face is very bare. But there is a good reason for that because today we're talking about summer. I'm going to be going through my steps to create a long wearing base. The little steps that you can do to prevent your foundation or concealer, whatever it is, from completely sliding off your face when it's super hot and humid. Whether or not you even live in an area that gets that hot or humid, you may be going on vacation and kind of need to plan accordingly and what to do when you want to go out, that kind of thing. So I'm going to do my face as a demo and go through some of my guidelines. First step, and this will always be the first step no matter what season we're talking about, is your skincare. Make sure that you're using the appropriate moisturizer. Make sure you're cleansing, exfoliating. You know, your makeup is only going to look as good as your skin does. Makeup's not going to cover texture, that kind of thing. So really take the time to get the right routine down, to keep your skin as healthy as possible. But also, we want to make sure that we're using our SPF. I think that is a no-brainer. We've heard enough about how the sun is damaging our skin, so always make sure to have your SPF on. It's super important. And when you're doing your skincare routine, your SPF, that kind of thing, you really want to let it sit on your skin for a little bit, absorb before you go into your makeup steps. That's really going to make a huge difference as far as the wear of your foundation. You know, if you go right in with your moisturizer, right in with SPF, and then go in with your foundation, things are not going to mesh well. You need that product to kind of absorb into the skin, do its job, and then go in with your next steps. Number 2 is going to be primer. That is probably one of the more important steps to have the best longevity out of your makeup when we're dealing with warmer conditions. Make sure you're picking the right one for your skin type. For me, I have a normal to oily skin type. I'm oily in my T-zone and everywhere else is normal. I do suffer from dehydration, so I use serums and things like that to correct that. But overall, I'm fairly normal. But when it gets hot, I get so much oil in my T-zone, particularly my nose, sides of the nose, and a little on my forehead. My chin, not so much. So I always want to make sure that I'm using an appropriate primer so my foundation doesn't just slide or start to, separate from the rest of the face. For today, I'm using the Nivea Post-Shave Balm. This is not even a primer, but we've all seen it on YouTube everywhere, and I've been using this for a long time now, and it is great. And what I like most about this primer, I'm just going to put it on as we chit chat here. I love this because it creates a tacky surface. So when you massage it into your skin, it feels very smooth and kind of like just a moisturizer, but it will start to grip and you'll feel your skin tug a little bit. That's when you know you've blended it enough, and that is what we're looking for. We're looking for that, tackiness, because your foundation is just gonna cling to that tackiness and hold on so much longer. Even though this is not a primer, it's not an oil control type thing, I find this actually helps a lot with the oil in my T-zone. I do set with powder, and we'll get into those steps. My number 3 tip is choose the right foundation. Obviously, that is going to be something I would recommend for any time of the year. A lot of these guidelines are going to follow through any season, and this step may seem like a no-brainer. Duh, of course you're going to pick the right foundation for your skin type, but you'd be amazed at how many people aren't using the correct one for their skin condition. So if they're super dry, I wouldn't go for something that's mattifying, or a powder, for instance, a powder foundation, because that's just gonna cling to the dryness. You're just gonna look more dry. If you're a mature skin, I never would use a mattifying one because it's just gonna start to look crepey on the skin. If you're super oily, you can use a mattifier one. If you're kind of in between, you can use maybe a satin finish one. For me, even though I'm oily, I like to be luminous. I like the skin to look like skin. So I'm going to be using the L'Oreal True Match Lumi. This wears very well on me. Even though it is a little bit more luminous, I find that I get such good wear from this foundation. So it really is going to be a person-to-person thing. Every foundation is going to wear differently on a different person, Other ones that I love, I've talked about it 1,000 times. It's the number 7 Airbrush Away. This one's gorgeous for anybody. Honestly, I think anyone can use this foundation and it wears amazing, but I'm trying to change things up a little bit, so I'm not using the same product over and over. So I've just gotten a little bit on the back of my hand. If you want to know some color reference, I'm in Natural Beige W4. I do have still some tanner on. So this is my biggest tip. Apply a little bit in the areas that wear most on you, whether it's your whole face, and start to massage it into the skin. For me, you know, again, it's the T-zone. The more you push a product into the skin, it's going to wear better. It's going to look better too. So I'm just going in my T-zone and I'm taking my time with my fingers to push it and work it into the skin. We are going to use a sponge. You can use a brush, but I'm just doing this step. In the areas, particularly too, I have large pores and it doesn't just sit on the skin. When makeup sits on the skin, that's when it starts to slide around, becomes too thick, and when your makeup's too thick, it automatically is gonna move. Use a BB cream. If you don't need a whole lot, don't put it on your face, especially in the summertime. If you don't need a lot of concealer, don't load up on it because that's just gonna slide more and more. And actually going on, we'll continue on to my 4th tip is thin layers. Build up your foundation, you know, only use a little bit, work it into the skin, and if you need more, go in with more. So what I'm gonna do now is finish off the rest of the face. You can go in with a brush. I'm gonna use a damp beauty blender, and then I'm just gonna finish the rest of the face. And you can go over the areas you already worked on because you've set up that thin layer that's already pushed into the skin. And I always recommend a dampen beauty blender or beauty sponge. This one's the Real Techniques one. Okay, so we've done our foundation and it's not perfect, you know. I still see some of my freckles. I just don't like to feel that I have a lot of makeup on, but build up to get a full coverage if you want. But remember, you can still use concealer. So don't go too crazy with those foundation layers. Keep them nice and thin. We're ready to go into concealer. I'm going to use a combination of 2 concealers today just because of the shade. I'm going to use L'Oreal, the Visibly Lift Blur one, and this is in Fair, and then I'm going in with Maybelline Fit Me in Light. I'm going to go in and do a little concealing, but I don't want to brighten in these areas. So I just need going in with my sponge to blend that. And then to brighten, I'm going to go in with the Visibly Lift one. I'm just going to use my fingers to apply it. And then going in with my sponge, I'm going to blend it out. I'm going to allow that to sink into the skin before we go in with powder. I generally try to do that. Allow your concealer foundation to just melt into the skin, let everything start to set, and then finish up with powder. That way you're not putting powder on something that may still have a tacky finish to it, and that's when things start to look a little cakey and maybe a little dry or crepey under the eye. So give that some time to settle in and mesh with your skin. We're gonna go in with brows while everything else is kind of setting. I think I'm gonna go in with the Wunderbrow brow gel in Brunette today. Let's move on to bronzers to kind of warm up the face a little bit. Cream products are generally not what people go for when it is summertime. I use them year-round. If you have super oily skin, just go in and set everything with powder. So use a cream bronzer and then go in with a little powder bronzer. That is going to make everything last. Oh my gosh, it won't budge. That's something I do year-round if I want a super, you know, long wearing makeup. But don't be scared by cream. I think it's such a great thing to use. I think for today, I'm going to do that technique and layer up a little bit. So I'm grabbing Aphrodisiac, which is from ColourPop. It's a super shock cheek product, but it is clearly more of a bronzer. And I'm just going to get my fingers. This is not a super dark shade. And I'm just going to pat that into the skin. You can use brushes, sponges, but I love using my fingers because it just, again, pushes everything into the skin. The warmth of your fingers make everything kind of just melt. That just warmed up the skin a little bit. Now I do like to go in, like I said, with a powder bronzer. I'm going to use the L'Oreal Glam bronzer. This one's going to actually give us a little bit of like a gold sheen, kind of make things look a little glowy. So I'm just taking that right over the same areas we went in. Even take it on the cheeks, you know. Bronzer isn't a contour. Bronzer is just to warm up the face. Okay, we're done with the bronzer. Let's go in and just set the under eyes a little bit. So I'm gonna grab the RCMA No Color Powder. What I would recommend for summer is use a setting powder, but use something that's very light. Don't go in and cake on the powder because it's actually gonna make things worse. You're gonna find that when you start to sweat or create oil, there's just that much more on your face that's going to start to separate and look weird and blotchy, that kind of thing. So go in, again, thin layers, lighter amounts of makeup. So I'm grabbing the RCMA powder and I'm just using my sponge and I'm dipping into the powder and I'm going right in. I'm not necessarily baking, but I'm just tapping that in. And then I like to go in the T-zone. Just anywhere you get oily. And if you get oily all over your face, do the same thing. I like this because even though it's white, it blends in and doesn't give you any color. And when you use a sponge that's damp, it just, there's just no way it ever looks cakey. So everything's nice and smooth, and I have a little bit of protection in the areas that I tend to get oily. Onto highlighter, the same rule can apply for what we did with the bronzer. You can go in with a cream one and then go with a powder highlighter on top. That's gonna actually make things look super intense and last longer on the face. But I think I'm just gonna go straight in with powder today. I'm actually using the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder in Ethereal Light. I usually go for something intense, but I think today I kind of want to look a little bit more lit within. We'll see, I may change my mind. If you have large pores on your cheeks, I think that a product like this is gorgeous. You want something a little bit more glowy, go in with more of an intense one. I think I might leave it as is, but maybe just hit a tiny little bit with MAC Soft and Gentle, just on the higher points right here. Tiniest bit. Then just a little right here, tiny bit more on my nose and the Cupid's bow. Now let's get to our blush. The same concept. You can go in with a cream one and top it off with a powder to really lock things in. If you're super oily and you're scared for cream, do that technique. If you're dry, I think that a cream can last a super long time on the skin, so don't be afraid to use the cream. For me, I think I'm just gonna go straight in with blush. I'm gonna use Tarte's, what is this, Fearless, a little pop of pink. Something like these Tarte blushes, they really do last long on the skin, so I would recommend them. And I'm telling you, they last forever. I've had this forever, and I still see the little print. Now, lastly, lips. I think the easiest thing is some sort of lip gloss or balm. That's what I always do. I keep it in my purse. So wherever I go, I always have a gloss or a balm that's tinted, for instance. Those are just the easiest things to do for the summertime. But if you want something a little bit bolder, if you want to make a statement lip, I recommend something more matte than super creamy. You know, if we start getting sweaty on the upper lip, that creamy lipstick could start to feather and kind of mesh with the oils a little bit, and you might just find things start to smear all over the place. So go in with like a liquid lipstick or a matte lip pencil or matte lipstick if you're not going to do the gloss route. So either one of those I think are great for the summertime. I've grabbed two. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use. So I have the Lorac Pro Matte Lip Pencil or Matte Lip Color, and this is in the shade Fuchsia. And then I also have the L'Oreal La Matte, and this is more of like a velvet finish. What shade is this one? This one's Matter of Fact. I think I'm going to go in with the L'Oreal La Matte. I haven't worn this one in forever, and it's a gorgeous shade. I like the formula on these too. I absolutely love this lip color. If I need a statement lip and it's not a red, this is the tone that I definitely love. I think it makes your teeth look super white. It's gorgeous. I love it. And lastly, probably one of the most important steps out of this whole routine is a setting spray. I would recommend the Urban Decay All Nighter, or if you have dry skin, the Chill one. Those are great. I actually happen to still have the Scandinavia makeup setting spray. This one's great as well. So really douse yourself in this stuff. And that's it. That is our summertime base tutorial guide to make sure that your makeup isn't going anywhere this hot summertime. And let me know in the comments below what your favorite summer tip is to get the best wear out of your base or makeup in general, whatever it may be. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to give the video a big thumbs up if you liked this. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, you know where that button lives. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye. And the rose gold is definitely more of like a copper